Good morning to our participants in sunny Los Angeles. Good afternoon to those of you joining us from the cold Midwest and East Coast. And good evening to listeners in snowy Sparta. My name is Sharon Gerstel, and I'm director of the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for the Study of Hellenic Culture. And I'm joined today by my dear colleague, Anastasia Loukaitou-Sideris, Associate Dean of the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, and Distinguished Professor of Urban Planning for the first of a series of conversations with mayors of Greek cities. I would like to especially welcome the Consul General of Greece in Los Angeles, Ms. Evgenia Baniatoglou, who is also joining us today. In this event, Professor Loukaitou-Sideris and I will be discussing with the mayor issues that he encounters in overseeing a thriving city and its outlying villages. Following a brief conversation with the mayor's presentation and our initial discussion, we invite you to directly ask any questions, either by typing them into the chat or by unmuting yourself. Until that question period, please keep your microphones on mute. Today we welcome Mayor Petros Doukas for a conversation about the city of Sparta, a city with strong roots in a proud, ancient, and Byzantine past, and one with exciting plans for the future, plans that include a new hospital, museum, sports facilities, and perhaps even an airport. This conversation will touch on the challenges of COVID, large infrastructure plans, traffic management, strategic partnerships, and of course, the 2500th anniversary of the Battle of Thermopylae. In other words, we are interested both in the city's day-to-day life, but also in finding out more about the innovative plans for its future. We also want to think about the relationship of the city and its surrounding villages, its local manufacturing, and the region's growing commitment to and success in bioagriculture. And we want to know how a city so closely associated with the strength of the 300 Spartiatis brands itself for a new, strong chapter in its history. And in this conversation, we're lucky to have as our guest a mayor who is not only a visionary, but one who understands that governance requires an open mind, diplomacy, and an ability to offer practical solutions to everyday problems. For the last 30 years, I have studied and published the Byzantine monuments of Laconia, and the Kolovos chair that I hold was given to UCLA by a Laconian from Karies. And moreover, as director of the center associated with the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, it has been my great pleasure to witness the amazing ongoing work at Vamvaku and to attend with so many of you its Chestnut Festival. For these reasons, it is a particular pleasure for me that we begin this series with a conversation about my favorite city in Greece, a city that is undergoing enormous changes, the city of Sparta. Dr. Petros Doukas, mayor of Sparta, holds an MBA from Columbia University and a PhD in economics from New York University. He is author of Modern Economic and Management Theories and Classical Greek Thought. He has vast experience in finance and has served as a Citibank executive in New York, a vice president, country head, and treasurer of Citibank Greece, and chairman of the board of directors of Heraklis Ericsson Greece, PepsiCo Greece, and the Nova Pay TV Group. He serves as chairman of the board of Capital Partners, an investment banking advisory firm, and he's also president of the Hellenic Golf Federation. From 2004 to 2009, he represented the Attica region as an elected member of parliament for Nea Demokratia, and also served as Deputy Minister of Finance and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. In 2019, he was elected mayor of Sparta. We look forward in a few moments to hearing everything he has to say about his city and his plans for the future. Today's event is being co-sponsored by the Pan-Laconian Federation of United States and Canada, a federation that was organized in 1948 to bring together all persons of Laconian origin and extraction in the United States and Canada in order to stimulate pride in the heritage, history, and tradition of their ancestry, and to offer spiritual and material aid to the residents of Laconia. We're very lucky to be joined this afternoon from New York by the Pan-Laconian Federation's wonderful president, Mr. Theodore Pavlakos, who will say a few words before we invite the mayor to speak to us. Mr. Pavlakos.
Thank you. On behalf of the Pan-Laconia Federation of United States and Canada, I greet all participants and I wish you happy and healthy New Year. I welcome to the United States the Honorable Mr. Petros Doukas, Mayor of the historic city of Sparta, on his fastest trip to the USA with the quickest way of traveling via Zoom. I'd like to thank the UCLA Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center of the Study of Hellenic Culture for the courteous invitation to our Pan-Laconian Federation to co-sponsor this great virtual event, and especially Mrs. Sharon Gerstel, Professor of Byzantine Art. Am I heard? Do you listen to me? Hello? Do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. And archaeology for her excellent collaboration with us. Many thanks to the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for the many important contributions and projects throughout the world, especially to Greece and USA. May God rest the soul of the great Laconian Stavros Niarchos. Our Pan-Laconian Federation of the United States and Canada, founded in 1948, has a long history of accomplishing many significant projects, with the latest one, the establishment of the Spartan Museum in collaboration with the Center for Hellenic Studies Pedia at the University of Connecticut, UConn. Thank you all, and good luck.
Mayor Doukas, we would like to invite you to take the screen and address us, if you will.
Great. Sharon and friends and Theodore and Helen and Anastasia, I'm really deeply honored by this invitation by the University of California at Los Angeles and the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. Really deeply honored. And Sharon, many thanks for the great work you have been doing on our Byzantine culture. We look forward to more and more of it. I understand UCLA has 15 Nobelists, Nobel laureates. I understand you have over 260 Olympic medalists from the university. I understand that more than 100,000 people apply every year just to become freshmen. Then you have over 3,900 courses that you offer. So you're doing a great work and we appreciate that. Very briefly, why are we bothering with Sparta and Mistras, which I'll come later to? Now, what was it? Was it Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman at the time that started the Trojan War? She was a Spartan queen, not a Trojan lady. Was it King Leonidas and his brave fight against 200 times greater Persian forces? Was it that caused a number of cities? We have 20 cities in the United States. Sparta is the most widely, and Spartan is the most widely used city name in the world. For example, in the United States, you have 20 cities that are named Sparta. Last November, we had, a year and something ago, we had a big video wall in the city square, and we connected ourselves. The citizens of Sparta flocked into the square to connect themselves live with 5 Spartas in New Jersey, in Georgia, and what have you. So just listen very fast. Sparta, Georgia, Sparta, Illinois, Sparta, Indiana, Sparta, Kentucky, Sparta, Louisiana, Sparta, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska. I'm just reading here. New Jersey, and there's a mountain, Mount Sparta in New Jersey. New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Sparta, Ontario. There is a Sparta in Costa Rica, Esparza they call it. There is a Sparta in Turkey, from the ancient city of Sparta in Turkey. There is a Sparta prefecture in Venezuela. And Sparta is the most widely used name for sports teams. There is a Sparta Rotterdam, Sparta in Prague, Sparta in Moscow, Sparta in Trnava, Sparta in Brno in Slovakia, Sparta in Belgrade, Sparta in Sofia. Is a Sparta soccer team in Asuncion, Paraguay. There's a Michigan State University Sparta Stadium and the San Jose University Sparta Stadium. So Sparta and Sparta, but why? What happened? First of all, of course, it was the great sacrifice of Leonidas, but there was something more that made Sparta a more popular name than Athens, for example, or Rome, or Berlin, or Tokyo, or what have you. It was because Sparta had and was lucky to have the greatest lawmaker of all times. This guy, Lycurgus, crafted a constitution back in 830 before Christ that was a very complex constitution, but it allowed all social forces to feel they're participating. So it lasted for over 6 centuries, over 600 years. The only constitution that lasted for so long with normal succession of powers. It wasn't that one clan murdered the guys of another clan and ascended to power. It was all smooth from 830 before Christ to around 200 before Christ, very, very roughly. What did this guy do? And then I'm getting to modern Sparta and Mistras. First of all, it was the first ever in the history of humankind that had a constitutional democracy. Lycurgus inscribed in his laws that the ultimate force is the power of the people. The people's assembly has the last word. But he did more than that because he felt the people were more flexible and one day they could vote one way, the other day they could vote another way like they did in Athens. And Aristotle was very critical of the democracy in Athens as it did not have a very solid base. There was no anchor for it. So what did Lycurgus do? He said, okay, the top voice is the voice of the people, but I will also have not a monarchy, a duarchy, 2 kings, 2 royal houses that one will watch over the other. So the aristocratic class, the best Spartans would be represented by these 2 royal houses that descended from the semi-god Heracles. And they strongly believed that they were descendants of Heracles. So he said 2 royal houses. And I will also have, in addition to the 2 royal houses, which were military houses, they were commanders in chief in the war. They were first to go to battle, not the first to enjoy the fruits of power. They really marched and campaigned all their life, actually. It was a very, very tough job being a Spartan king. He also, for the first time in human history, developed the concept of a senate. Older people of high stature would be elected as life senators. So if you look at the UK political system, it's the one that has kings and it has the House of Lords. It's a quasi copy of the Spartan constitution. If you look at the US Constitution, you have the Senate that Lycurgus invaded in 830 before Christ, but you're the only country that has a president and a vice president. It is a copy of the 2 kings of Sparta. In Greece now, we only have a president. There is no number 2 under our president. It's the government. In Rome, according to a number of sources, they copied this system, so they had 2 prefectures. Everything in Rome was a dual head, and that was copied from Sparta. They didn't want to have a king. They had prefects and other sources of power. What else did he do? He said for the first time that I want a stable country and a stable political system, and stability means some sort of income and wealth equality. So for the first time in the history of mankind, you have the first redistribution of land to about 9,000 equal parcels that were divided among the 9,000 families at the time, around 830. And the last thing he did, so you had a little bit of Marxism, 27 centuries, 28 centuries before Marx, that you need some sort of equality. And if equality is not there, you're going to have the seeds of revolution. And the last thing that's worth mentioning, he did a lot of other things, but the last thing that it's worth mentioning, that he had for the first time the concept of free public education. All the kids from 7 years old got exactly, whether were a poor guy or a rich guy, you had the same schooling in letters and in the arts of war. And why did he do that schooling? He did them so they can retain their freedom. He says, if I train you well and you're also an educated person and a good soldier, then Sparta will be free. It will be free from two sources. One, from foreign attackers and foreign enemies, but also from domestic tyrants. There's always somebody who wants to usurp power and make Sparta into a tyranny. So by having this system, he managed to have a system of 600 years stability. And the new Sparta was Mistras, around 1200 after Christ, 4 kilometers outside Sparta in the hill of Mistras or Misithras at the time. You developed the first seeds of a renaissance of the Greek spirit and the first seeds of a renaissance of the Renaissance in the West. You had a lot of people in the arts and culture and philosophy like Plithon Gemistos, who will be celebrating the coming months and the coming years. So you had a rejuvenation, and it was from Mistras, 4 kilometers outside Sparta, from the Byzantine palace, that our last emperor, Constantine Palaiologos, was crowned last emperor, and he left from Sparta to Githio, and then by boat to Constantinople to have the noble fight that he gave. So there's a number of things that are interesting about Sparta, and there are good lessons to be learned from us today. First of all, that you need all social classes to participate. Once you feel excluded, you will want to undo the system. People think that democracy was an Athenian invention. No, the Spartans were able to vote, all of them, except the slaves, of course, from 830 before Christ. In Athens, there was a democracy around 230 years later under Solon, but the very poor could vote but could not be elected. The ability to elect the very poor was given around 510 before Christ by Clisthenes, but this was still 300 plus years after Sparta. So yes, it's a city that gave and started the modern political civilization. And this is why it's very, very important. And this is why it's worth bothering with. Now, in modern Sparta, and I don't know if you want to start with some questions or you want me to go ahead, we're now facing, first of all, this major issue with Corona that has set back a number of our noble efforts. The first thing that we're trying to do is try to smooth the relationships with the other parties in our own little parliament, in our Demotiko Συμβούλιο, in our alderman system. So we have offered them pretty much, come pick up the areas you want to take over. Here are my keys, come and work and do whatever you want. For example, for all the public works, we set up a team to oversight, and the head of the team is the head of the opposition. So I said, please come do, I'll follow your instructions. This is not just a pretentious thing, so you think we're doing something and we're open-minded, but behind your back, we'll pull the rug under you. No, and it's working. It has started working very well. And this is very open to all the other members of our parliament, a local parliament, to come and work and do something without losing their ability to criticize us and correct us wherever we are wrong. And of course, being human, we can be wrong many times. Hopefully we don't repeat the same mistake time and time again. So if you show us where we're wrong, we will honestly try to correct, but we're not above making any mistakes. We will make mistakes, some of them stupid, but hopefully we won't repeat stupid mistakes. So what we feel is there's a number of things we need to do for modern Sparta. One, as I said, is try to smooth out the relationship so there's not enough tackling back and forth, which is time wasting and it doesn't produce that much. We feel that things are going to be very, very tough after the Corona is over. What's happening now is that the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States and the European Central Bank are really printing money day and night. The amount of money that's being printed by the two big central banks is unprecedented. So what do they do with that money? They give it at 0 interest rate to the banks, and the banks buy debt from the governments who are having tremendous deficits, because they say, okay, I will pay part of your salary, I will pay part of this, I will do some public works. There's no revenue for the government to pay for all that. Even our revenues in Sparta, of course, under COVID, are very weak now, because we gave major discounts to everybody who's using our municipal services and what have you. So we are in imbalance. The government has the capacity to borrow, but at some point you'll have to pay the money back, even if interest rates are 0. So right now in the United States and in Europe, we're somehow surviving this crisis, which could have been much worse without the printing of money. And we live to see another day, and we face the problem when we face the problem. So what we feel in Sparta is that we really need to work for the day after. And we have already started doing we would have done it anyhow. Now we need to do it more intensively, because the problem is more intense. So we're trying to figure out where are the areas of growth for us. First of all is public works. We need to beautify the city, work on the central squares, work on open malls around the central square, work on the main avenue, Constantine Palaiologos main avenue, and restructure it. You know, we have these famous palm trees, but this little bug has eaten half of them, and the rest are getting old. So we're trying to restructure all that. So public works will make the city better looking and will give jobs to people who are actually doing the public works. The next thing is we have identified the areas of growth beyond the day-to-day workings of the municipal government and the Sparta administration. First of all, it's agribusiness. We are an agricultural area and have traditionally been, since Lycurgos time, an agricultural area, a very conservative agricultural area. People are conservative here, like they were 25, 30 centuries ago. So promote agriculture. And what we're saying is that because a product is a product unless you can brand it better. So people can pay for the same product something extra. 1 millionth extra is 1 millionth of a benefit. If it's 1%, 1%, 10%, 10%. So what we're doing is we're developing now, we're in the process of developing the network of agribusinesses of our region, and we'll connect them into a union, which will develop the brand name, this made in Sparta. This is Sparta. We're now looking at alternative branding systems. We're already talking to major corporations to give us discounts for members of this network. We're already had planned a huge Spartagrotica, a very big agricultural fair. We've invited people from Holland and Israel who have very good returns on per acre to show us different ways, exchange ideas with our farmers and what have you. We had planned really something impressive. Of course, COVID came and that has gone back. We have a number of festivals that are agricultural festivals in nature in some of the beautiful villages surrounding Sparta, which gives me a parenthesis to make. Let's say very roughly rounded figures, Sparta, the municipality of Sparta is 40,000, of which 20,000 in the main city and around 20,000 in about 50 small and medium-sized villages surrounding Sparta, which is about 1,200 square kilometers. This is the size. So it's a sizable municipality with 50 villages and 20,000 in the city, 20,000 surrounding the city. So a lot of these villages have very nice annual festivals, and we want to promote them because they can sell their products. They get tourists, Airbnbs, the hotels can be packed and what have you. Similarly, the second thing is tourism. We have ancient Sparta and its history. We had the Goths and the French madmen who came and really wrecked a lot of places looking for epigraphes in Sparta, and in the process of making his PhD thesis managed to destroy the remaining monuments. He was worse than the Goths, which around 3rd to 4th century after Christ really demolished the ancient city. So with tourism, we have super trekking areas. The mountains in Parnon and in Taigetos are absolutely beautiful. We have Mistras, which was one of the seeds of not just the Greek, but the European Renaissance. We're trying to convince the Ministry of Culture to allow us to use the churches in Mistras for various mysteries, christenings, baptisms, and what have you, so that the place can become much more lively. The archaeologists are very, don't just look, don't touch. We feel that these things need to be revived, and it will be good for the income of the archaeological system to be able to make repairs and improve things faster, and would give much more life to the city and will allow people to connect with the history. It's one thing if you see something from afar, it's another thing if you go inside and live more in it. The third we want to do is we want to make Sparta an international sports center for sports that are outdoors. For example, we had arranged for a super marathon from Sparta to Thermopylae, the same route that our King Leonidas covered. And we had over 500, 600 participants who could actually do 340 kilometers non-stop or with very few stops. And we had another group that had arranged for a Thermopylae to Sparta, the return of the glory, they call it, with the Joe de Sena and the Spartan race system. And then we have the Helen of Troy marathon. Helen and Paris leave the palace in Sparta and run away to go to Troy. And we have the guards of the King Menelaus, who are the marathon runners, who would chase them to Ythio to prevent them from taking the boat. Of course, history says they didn't prevent them, but that would be a good story for a nice marathon. Or Sparta to the top of Mount Aigos, or all these trekking events and Ironman events and martial arts events that don't need huge Wembley type or Olympic type stadiums. So Sparta as an international sports center is very interesting for us. We already signed a memorandum of cooperation with the University of the Peloponnese, and we are hard at work. Of course, nothing live can happen now. We just plan and have to wait. And also do Sparta as a center for political thinking, creation of a new thinking. Because we had Lycurgus as the top lawmaker of, in my opinion, of all times, yet he made the law that lasted for 600 years. They have make it a constitutional studies center and historical studies center. I want the next convention of NATO countries to come to Sparta to celebrate the 2,500 years. This 2021 is the year that's exactly 2,500th year from the famous Battle of Thermopylae. And because NATO supposedly presents the same ideas as ancient Sparta, we want them to honor Sparta with that. We want to have international geopolitical conferences. We wanted to have a big conference between Iran, Persia, and the United States, Iran-Persia and the United States, when things start improving. Now we don't want to get our hands into messy situations. When things start improving, have the major conference for improvement of their relationship in Sparta and what have you. There's a whole list of gastronomy and dance festivals and you name it, poetry festivals and history books festival. So it's like over 50. It was going to take me forever to present them to you. This is a basic roundabout, and of course, opening up the closed airport. There's an airport that's 1,250 meters it's in good shape. Not the buildings, but the corridor is in good shape, and we're working out with the Civil Aviation Administration to actually get it moving. So that could create more jobs and connect Sparta with a number of cities. It's not big enough for jumbo jets, but it's good enough to start small flights, 40 passengers, or small commercial flights, or FedEx small planes and aero taxis and airplanes for firefighting and what have you. So Sharon, this is my first introduction. I'm open to anything you would like to ask.
So I'd like to ask my colleague Anastasia maybe to ask the first question. We've been having lots of discussions with you. It sounds all so exciting. I want to get on a plane right now and come there and sit by your side and see what's going on. Anastasia, why don't you start us
off? Yes, so good evening, Mayor, and good morning to everyone here in Los Angeles. Good afternoon to everyone who is on the East Coast in the US, and of course, good evening to all the Greeks from Greece. It is a pleasure to have Mayor Doukas here, and thank you also for giving us a quick overview of Sparta's celebrated history and its contributions to the modern civilization. I want to start with some of the challenges that you may be facing as mayor, and of course, the first challenges that the whole globe is facing right now, and certainly the city of Los Angeles, is the pandemic. We are reeling from the pandemic, really. You've mentioned about planning ahead for the day after, but can you tell us a bit about how do you plan for today in terms of some people who may be hurting, the local economy that may be hurting because the tourists have not arrived, or the restaurants do not have the people that used to patronize them? Can you speak a little bit about what you are doing as a mayor?
First of all, the one basic problem all mayors have is financial resources. You cannot tax freely. You cannot raise revenues freely. There's complete limitations as to what you can do. And also, regarding employees, you have very, very limited powers over employees who don't perform. Somebody who doesn't perform has a number of means of not being threatened for a job change, and certainly not firing. The concept of having somebody who doesn't deliver, and because I talked to them, I said, if you don't deliver, you're hurting the citizens, you're not hurting me. It's the citizens that suffer from low productivity of some of our services. You get paid by people who work and pay taxes, and you're not delivering back. Now, this is something that works occasionally. Other times it doesn't get people to work more. So it's very difficult to say, okay, Sharon, you're one of our top 10% people, and I will reward you in this respect. And Peter, you're bottom 10%, and you have to take action to see how we can improve that. That has become very difficult. So the productivity is very low. If I have a super engineer, if Einstein came to me tomorrow, I wouldn't be able to hire him. It's a very deep freeze in all these respects. So people management is the first thing for growth. The right people will find the solutions, whether I guide them or I don't guide them. The more people take out of my time and they can fix and don't fix the problems by themselves, the worse off we are. If you can do your job and you can get things moving faster without my intervention, you're my best benefactor. I want that. I want people, I say it in Greek, amola kalumba. When we fly the kites, when the wind is good, you allow more of the kite to go higher. When the thing starts wobbling and doesn't deliver, you pull the kite back. So I'm one of those who believe, let the people perform, and once they perform, give them more and more ground to perform. And I'm doing that here. I'm allowing the people to actually take initiative, but it doesn't work always like that. Some people are set in their ways and they don't take the bite. So one thing is that. The other is we have a number of services like delivery at home for older people. We take them their medicines and we take them their food. Now, of course, you have to have some filters so everybody comes and says, oh, I need food, get me to some food here today and get me my medicine. So there are filters, but the system is there. We have civic grocery. So people can come and get free food, spaghettis and what have you. We don't offer champagne. Nobody's asking for it. But basic things we do deliver. We have given 50% discounts for municipal rents. So if you want to come and you're renting something, we're giving you a 50% discount, and we're not really pushing you for the rest. I mean, we're trying to keep calm, but that hurt them. Our system then suffers from that. Our system, because I have to keep standing the municipality and the city of Sparta itself. So I'm trying to be as conservative as possible in managing our resources, because our resources are unlimited. And I know that still bad months are ahead of us in terms of revenue and in terms of need. You know, you have to go out, clean the schools. All these are very, very expensive, paying overtime to people. So I have to make sure that whatever it is we do, we are the last man standing, and we have to keep the municipality up and running no matter what. So yes, we do all these social work type of things. We have a psychological support system. We even send people to Elafonisos and Monavasi and what have you because we have a center here for psychological support and for people who either feel lonely or are distressed or they have a problem, whether it was due to COVID or a pre-existing kind of problem. So there's a number of things that we're doing on the social front, but it's not easy.
I just want to follow up because it sounds as if you're having very interesting interventions in society at this moment to deal with the pandemic. And at the same time, you as a mayor are planning the construction of a new hospital. So what is the status of the hospital? Can you tell us how it will expand health care in the region? Is it meant for Sparta? Is it meant for all of Laconia?
It's going to be a super, super modern hospital designed by one of the top architects of the world, Renzo Piano. The financing and the initiative is by the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, and we deeply thank them for that. It's going to be having about 165, 170 beds with a number of clinics, not every clinic that there is on the world, but the basic clinics that are needed are going to be there. It's going to be delivered by the Niarchos Foundation to the government system, not to Sparta itself, but to serve the needs of Sparta. And we hope that we're going to have top quality medical staff, as we do have now. We have some very, very good people at our hospital. It's going to be something to be jealous throughout Europe. It's going to be a jewel. They're also helping us with the old Archaeological Museum at the center of Sparta, 2 blocks from where I am now. Beautiful building and what have you. But of course, it's getting old and dilapidated. And Renzo Piano with Stavros Niarchos Foundation funds are going to be re-looking at it and see how they can revamp it, including at the streets that are surrounding that museum. Now, the problem is that Renzo Piano, who's, as I said, the top architect, is locked up in his premises in Paris because, like everybody else, he's afraid to travel. So this thing is getting backtracked a little bit, but we're keeping the pressure and the push. There's also the initiative for a new modern museum of ancient Spartan history. That's by the entrance of Sparta by the river Evrotas. That will take longer. So I'm putting my first bets on the old museum. And then, of course, we're supporting fully the new modern museum. So we do have this kind of initiatives. And we also, as a municipality, would like to attract schools such as yours or Nottingham or Yale or other schools to come and have summer camps in Sparta, test the grounds. And if, for what I said before, for history, Byzantine studies and what have you, and once they like it, to have more permanent kind of settings in Sparta.
Mayor Doukas, as you're talking about some of the new buildings, can you tell us a little bit about the challenges of building a new contemporary city on top of an ancient one? What are the constraints and challenges?
It's not easy because wherever you dig close to the center of Sparta, you will find some sort of ancient relics. Some of them may be important. Some of them are just stones on top of one another. You may find some statuette or something like that. So we cherish our culture and legacy, and we work closely, but it takes much more time to build something. For example, opposite the new Peloponnese University, by one of the edges of Sparta towards the south, we're working with one of the sports clubs that they give us the land, and we'll build a modern stadium. Now, it's not only that we have the problem of that we will find some ancient relics, you have to make sure that any street that curves, you are not supposed to build on the exit of that street. So if a street goes like this, even at this projection of the street, you cannot build. So there are a number of problems that you have to do, that it takes us, at least 3 years to sort it out. So whatever you're trying to do, it will take much longer. But we're determined, we have good people. We're trying to work in all of these areas with members of the opposition parties, so we go faster. And as I said, take the key, and this project is yours, and I'm supporting you all the way to do it. But we do have that problem, but they're also reasonable. And the Minister of Culture, Linda Mendonis, is modern in thinking, and she tries to balance this thing, look but don't touch, and everything has to be kept that way, with the need of modern Spartans to live and have jobs, because we want to create jobs. Otherwise, the kids will disappear. The young people will leave. And what I tell them is sometimes we need to have more babies in the city, because otherwise, what's the purpose of revamping the square if we don't have enough kids to enjoy it? And I think the archaeological department is realizing that and is trying to work with us closely. So far, we hadn't had any complaints, other than what I said about the city of Mistras and the castle of Mistras, which has the only surviving Byzantine palace in the world. There's no other. It's just the one in Mistras. If you want to have a look at what the Byzantine palaces looked around the 11th, 12th century after Christ. And we're trying to tell them, let us allow us to have events in them, big corporate events who will actually pay top dollar and under any restrictions you want, nobody touches anything, or they are on the outside corridors and not on the main thing. It's good for everybody, and it will give the city a tremendous boost. But it will take some time. It's not something that I say in 1 month. If we have this discussion again, I'll have immediate progress. It's a tough situation.
I want to follow up on Anastasia's question and come back to the subject of tourism, because in Sparta you have almost two types of tourism, if you will, loosely. You have Greek Americans, or those who've left Laconia, who come back and spend the summer. And then you have foreign tourists who come, or archaeological tourists who come and largely pass through the city quickly. They stay a night and then they move on to the next side, whether it's Pylos or Olympia or something. How do you get people to stay in the city? How do you expand on the tourist base that already passes through the city all too quickly and hold them there so that the local economy benefits more from tourism?
There are a number of things that we're looking in parallel, in tandem. The one thing is that I know a lot of people go down south because that's where the beaches are. And we want to have, first of all, we have 3 beautiful 5-star hotels, Euphoria, Grand Palace, and Kiniska, right at the edge of Sparta and Mistras. Beautiful hotels. Unfortunately, all close to there. Before you enter Sparta, another beautiful hotel called Melia, and some very nice hotels, Menelaia and what have you, Maniatis, in the center of town. So we want to create business for them, and want to do it, first of all, by religious tourism, because people can see some of the best Byzantine churches there are in the world, and of course the Mistras castle. We want to get, because as I said, there are not that many super remaining ancient buildings that are full buildings. I just visited last week something that nobody even knows, the temple of Lycurgos, right on the other side of Vrotas. And as I said, that's why I'm trying to get why bother with Sparta, so people can come and feel the history and the importance that so many things happen for the first time in humankind, and come and see the place. Now, they may want to see an Acropolis type of thing or a Colosseum type of things. Unfortunately, we don't have that. We have the history in writing and the concepts. So we have religious tourism. We want to have a lot of conference to become a think tank conference for whole of Greece and Southeast Europe. We want to have all these food and agricultural festivals, so they know that they will go to beautiful villages and enjoy excellent food. One thing that happened, and Theodore will know about it, is Greeks left their villages suddenly, let's say in the 50s or whenever they left. So the villages were left intact, and they are as they were 80 years ago, which is nice, because you have a beautiful old village just outside, a few kilometers outside Sparta. Sparta itself has about 50 beautiful neoclassical buildings, Doric type, heavy, imposing buildings, that a lot of them have left for the United States. The ones that have inherited maybe 10, 15 people, one family in Australia, the other one in Texas. It's not very easy to do something with it, but we're now planning to actually force them to start revamping them or sell them to the municipality at a discount, of course, because we don't have excess money. So religious tourism, sports tourism, that's why I said we wanted to become a sports center. Geopolitical tourism, and get the gastronomical tourism, farm tourism. Go and see how you pick up olives and how you process olives and make olive oil, or you make them into table olives, and what are the different types of olive trees that we have. And if you want to adopt an olive tree, go to our super orange groves and to our factories. How we make trachana and pasta, various local pasta forms. Or how do we make the honey? We have a really, really superior honey. And we have two medicines here that the ancients used to have, because when Leonidas and his 300 went to war, they didn't have AstraZeneca and Pfizer and Bayer medicines in their pockets. They had local medicines, and it was the fermentation of balsam, hypericum they call it in the with olive oil. And this fermentation, if you put a green olive oil and you put that little plant in there, after a month outside in the sun, it becomes completely red. That red olive balsam mix fermentation is absolutely amazing in terms of skin care. You have problems, blisters, injuries. It's amazing. And there's another one, Aphroxylia or Achillea. You can check it in your, you can Google it, that when put in curry, it becomes very good for burns. And people live by it, they swear by it. So you know, it's not just something that's now being tested. It's for centuries that people have enjoyed it. And I'm trying to make a Spartan business out of it, unite them and develop a joint marketing system, develop this new brand that you're listening for the first time actually here. And this is the sort of thing that we try to do to create jobs and attract more tourists. The tourists will be attracted by what we're doing in the geopolitical and cultural area, because we have a lot of culture to show, and the sports area and the agribusiness area. That will attract tourists to us.
That's excellent. Have you witnessed a kind of a movement back to Sparta from people that have left to live in Athens? I have heard that a number of people during the big recession decided to go back to some of the cities they were coming from. And so by creating more economic development opportunities, I guess you're encouraging this movement. How many people now live year round in Sparta?
Now, a lot of people started coming back to avoid the corona thing. So the locals were said, oh, more Athenians are coming by the busload. They're probably bringing a few viruses with them, and we're going to have a problem. So people were, like, what's happening here? But we're having a lot of them come back. We want younger people to come back. That's why we're supporting the Niarchos Foundation Vavakou Revival Project, because what they're doing in Vavakou is very, very special. And we want to help them, including with these dermocosmetics and agribusiness, farming. You're not going to make a Silicon Valley there. We don't want to compete with people that are actually way ahead in some areas, but we want to compete conservatively in the areas where we're okay and we're doing well, like various agricultural products and cultural events and sports and what have you. So what they're doing in Vavakou, in the agribusiness area, is exemplary, and we're supporting them, and we expect young people to come and stay there. Now, for the time being, older people come. Retirees who feel, if I go to my village in Gorani or Kastori or Georgici or what have you, I'm much safer, the air is fresh, not many people are shown with coronavirus and what have you. So yes, but not as we want it to be. And we expect by this program that I gave you in summary, we'll have much, much more. So it's a combination of parallel things. You know, you're going to have more schools here. University type, college type schools. You're going to have many more sports events, many more civil events for world renowned personalities will come to Sparta, and people will read about it and they'll say, oh, let's go there. Culinary events and what have you. I want to have in the central square of Sparta, I'm showing over there because it's right next to us, to my mayor's office, in the central square, the small appella, the small assembly of people. Well, we'll put a big couch and what have you, and we'll have top personalities come and talk openly to the people about things they've done in their life. They could be cinematographers, could be top doctors or philosophers or what have you. And then people can freely sit by and just listen to them very, very informally. You don't have to register, you don't have to do anything. So it's quite a few programs of that sort. Now, I mentioned before that, Sharon, that there are a lot of soccer teams called Sparta from Moscow to Prague. We're honored to have them. In Rotterdam, they have a 50,000 strong stadium and what have you. Next year, what we're planning is to invite those Spartan teams to send us the kids under 15 to Sparta for a tournament. So you have Sparta Prague and Sparta Brno and Sparta Belgrade and what have you. There's also a soccer team Sparta in, where is it? In Salt Lake City. There's a Sparta football club in Salt Lake City and in Asunción, Paraguay. So invite 5, 6, 7 of them. We cannot afford to invite everybody has the name of Sparta, for the under 16s to come and play. And also the girls teams, maybe 2, 3 of them that are willing to come and have a tournament of that sort. So we're constantly on our feet to keep the brand name and the discussion about Sparta strong, because we expect that there's going to be a benefit to the common folk of Sparta from that.
I wanted to follow up on some of your comments and thinking about the relationship of Sparta and the outlying villages, because we have people with us today from Karies, Vrestina, Xirokambi, Mistra, all of these Greek Americans who are linked to these villages. And I wonder if you could talk
Fresh
about—
Spartan oranges, by the way.
I'm noticing that, and I have some oranges right behind me, not from Sparta, but from here in your honor. How is Sparta connected to the villages? I noticed on Facebook, for example, you posted something about the beautification of Plataea and Karies, but what is Sparta's investment in the outlying villages, and how do you link those villages to Sparta? How could they benefit from tourism or plans or your bicycle routes? How will you connect the villages intimately to Sparta?
Take Karies, for example. Beautiful city. You go there, you're amazed by the buildings. And as an investment, some of them are very, very cheap. You can buy a whole house. Really, I don't want to mention prices, but it's amazingly how cheap things are. Now we're improving the road to Karies. We're improving the central square, the down square of Karies. And then also had to have a little monument of Kariatides, which needs some helping and support, and we're doing it. But we also want to have motorcycle races there and bicycle races there. Now, Karies is also a beautiful place for trekking. So you have a young couple in love, there's no better place to go there and stay for a weekend than go walk into this beautiful scenery. Now, Karies, by the way, it's very strange, we talked about it sometime. During the ancient times, when the Thebans entered Sparta, the last war between Sparta and Thebes, the Karies folk, who were not actual Spartan citizens, revolted against Sparta and joined the Thebans. Of course, the Thebans in the end were pushed away, and of course the people of Karies paid the hard price. But Karies always had its own mentality, which was different than the conservative Spartan mentality. But it's such a beautiful place that we want to have this weekend tourism, weekend destination. It's, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours from Athens. You can come, have a beautiful time, walk around, feel healthy. And we want to have some of our marathon runs, trekking runs, and we're already planning motorcycle and bicycle championships. So we're trying to do the same thing for all the other beautiful villages. We're saying, fix your house a little bit, and you can have guests for the weekend. And we, in our general strategic tourism plan, we will note that if you want to go to Gorani or Kastori or Georgici, these are beautiful houses. You can stay and have a beautiful breakfast, and then you go for your trekking and really get your batteries filled up again. So we're working very, very closely with the villages, around 50 villages.
I want to ask about something that is close to both Sharon's and my heart, and that's education. So what is the city doing in terms of its schools? Are there, and technology? I saw someone actually in the chat asking about internet connections in public spaces, schools, in order to attract families and kids. I guess this is a major issue. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And also, is there any TEI in Sparta, or are you attracting also college students? Or are there any plans to do so?
First of all, the general education system is governed centrally from the Ministry of Education in Athens. Okay, so what the kids are studying and what electives that they have and what have you is from Athens. But we have the Sparta Tech Lab. We have an under-college TEI type of thing that offers 5 or 6 courses. And OAED, the job creation group of the government, also offers 3 or 4 courses that we're trying now to coordinate. So we're trying to tell them, let's work this together. And even though it's not the municipality's job, because we can do it, we're doing it. So with the Sparta Tech Lab as the center of the activity, we're trying to connect it with the University of Peloponnese, the TEI, and the OAED system, so we can offer kids more opportunities than what they had. We're trying to get the Ministry of Tourism to get for jobs for xenagos, tourist guides or mountain guides, because in our plan, the mountain guide system will be very, very strong. So we're already starting offering courses of that kind of thing. So yes, we're working very closely and it's on the top of our agenda. I mean, education is the future, and without a good education, the kids won't want to stay around. With a good education, they go, they meet people with similar interests, they make more friendships. It's a multiple thing. It's not just education. It's how they interact socially. So we're doing that. And any help, any support, any ideas from the friends that are looking at us now, and many thanks to all of your friends, Sharon, who are participating in our event here, are welcome. We're open to suggestions and ideas, and if there's something that's advanced in its capability to be applicable and doesn't require original study, we're really keen to adopt it and get on with it.
I have an eye on the chat where there are so many questions, both very specific ones. For example, will the road be improved between Sparta and Ythio? A question I want to know about as well. But also broader questions. For example, does the municipality maintain an email distribution list to communicate information? How can people here, for example, outside of Sparta, find out about what's happening inside Sparta?
We have our site. First of all, we issue press bulletins every time there's something happening. So we bombard them with press bulletins. 2, we have a site that is informed continuously. I'm not satisfied with the site, and we're going to improve it. So people, all these things that I mentioned, the sort of tourism, for example, what's happening in April, which villages are having honoring their saint and having a panigiri or something. This is something that we're now trying to fix. Regarding Ythio, it's a central government project. It's not a municipal project. It's too big of a project for the municipalities, but it's in a very high priority to get there.
We have a question from a member of the Amykleon research team, and I should say we're having a lecture about the recent finds in Amykleon next fall. But the question is, are there plans to create a large-scale cultural heritage park connecting various sites in the area? And also, what steps do you think can be taken to make the site of Artemis Orthia into a safe and visitable site for tourists?
Yes, in very close to our Orthia Artemida site, there were camps of Roma, and we have to now figure out a way to deal with it. And without getting into the feet of the archaeology department, because some things are compartmentalized. This is your job and this is my job, and But we're supporting that effort, and I know it's high on the priority of the minister, of the lady minister of culture. What we're trying to do now is connect the sites, not by developing a full park, because there's a lot of private properties there. So it's not government land where you can say, like you have in the Rocky Mountains and Yellowstone or something. This is a lot of private lands, farmland, so you cannot take the whole municipality and make it into a park. But we're trying to make a bicycle and a trekking road between, and to connect all this. Again, this is not easy because you interfere with private properties and you have to buy out the land unless somebody's very gracious and gives us the land for free. So from Mistras to central Sparta, and then to Orthia Artemida, Evrotas River, the temple of Lycurgos, which is in bad shape, but it's impressive. And then all the way down Menelaion, Amiklion, and all this stuff, it's in our plans. Mind you, they take a lot of time and a lot of money just to do the meleti, let alone just to do the preliminary study, then let alone to effect with all these properties that are there, including some Roma properties and Roma camps that have settled there. But yes, it's very high priority for us.
There is actually a question in the chat about dedicated bicycle lanes around Sparta and within Sparta. Are there plans for that?
Yes. What I said before. First of all, for the new Constantine Paleologue, which is the main avenue with the palm trees, in Sparta, we have crafted lanes on both sides of the street. The lanes, then we're having this mobility study that will go all the way to Mistras and all the way to other places. So there is a master plan. It takes a lot of time. It's frustrating sometimes to get things effected because there's all these regulations and all these things that you have to do the right way from the beginning. And so many ministries and so many offices that you have to go and get signatures. But yes, there is a study already completed. The main study has been completed. Now we have to start effecting it through all the ministries that are co-responsible.
Related to that, we talked a little bit yesterday about the parking issues in Sparta and the traffic down Paleologo Street and the taxi cabs parked in the center. Can you say something about the master plan to manage traffic and parking in the city, how you see the long term?
The master plan says that we will widen the sidewalks, and there's going to be 2 lanes in the middle, and there's going to be small slots to leave goods to shops and what have you. And there will be 4 or 5 main parking lots. And we're even ordering a couple of buses now for people to be transported. Now, people are used and like to park right in front of their house. 20 meters away is just too long. And it's, the strange thing is that everybody says, I don't like the main avenue as it is now. But they have lived with it, and in the end, they like to complain, but they don't like to change it as well, because you can park and double park, and you do your job. Then sometimes the buses have to honk for you to get off your double parking routine. But within a couple of minutes, these things are solved. It's not the sort of thing that you wait like in Cairo for 5 hours or whatever, or some of the bridges in New York. The lanes are moving fast. So our enemy is the existing condition where everybody says, yeah, change it, make it more beautiful, but I want to be able to park in front of my shop. And I want to be able to double park so I can go shopping because the main parking is taken by the shop owner. So we have this thing, but we're moving ahead. And of course, people always complain to the courts. Oh, they didn't do this thing. The signature wasn't correct and this kind of thing. So there's always a delay process there. But we're hard-headed and we're moving ahead as fast as possible.
Sir Mayor?
Limited resources, but yes, there will be parking spaces, private and municipal. And we're looking to talk to the bus company, either we work with them or we get our own buses. I would prefer to give it to the bus company because it's much less of a hassle, much less of a responsibility, and they know the job better than we do.
I think we have a question from Mr. Pavlakos.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you, because you proved to be really a Spartan, a Laconian, with your Laconic presentation.
I haven't stopped talking. I was not very Laconian.
No, your presentation was very laconic. The questions is different story. there were many questions. But with your idea, you said about ideas about to the question of Sharon, making people, tourists, stay more in Sparta. I think the different resorts and hotels, the 5-star hotels that they have been built around Sparta and Mistras, they would be very good for conventions and conferences. That will make people to stay there more than just pass through Sparta and go to different other places.
Yes.
So conventions are very important for the city and for the area, and usually attracts a lot of rich people, affluent people, that they have money and they spend the money. So it's a good idea to direct in that direction after the coronavirus, of course.
We have planned for a great number of conventions, but now you cannot even plan. So we had planned them for this year, and everything goes back, and you're not sure with this new strain of coronavirus from Kent. There is a new one from Brazil, and there is a new one from South Africa that apparently are much worse than the one we're experiencing now. So we can't really be sure when to start planning for things, for all the games that we had planned, for all the big geopolitical and very correct theater that we had planned. And we're not sure when we will be able to affect them. Now, webinars and this thing is good, but it's not the same thing as being live. Now, because of Corona, we got used to doing something like we did today, which is beautiful because you have people from Pasadena, from New York, from Greece, from South Africa, from all over the place following. So this is a good experience, but also we'll need to get back to some live content. But yes, both the sports events, we had over 40 sports events planned. And imagine some of them you could have, 500 athletes, and then their spouses or their kids or their trainers. You're talking about 3,000 people descending on the city almost every week or every other week. So it's a lot of stuff that can be done, even if you don't have the great monuments, and even if our museum is not functioning yet, and even if our hospital is not the new hospital that they would like to have. But it's still there's a lot of stuff that we're doing, and thanks for mentioning it.
You have within the city a lot of archaeological discoveries that have been restored in situ. I think of several Byzantine structures. So are there walking plans of the city? For example, I think in many European capitals, European cities, you will meet a tour guide, for example, in the Platea, and they will take you on a walking tour of the city. Are there plans to have something like that in the city to make the city understandable to people who don't know much about the long history of Sparta?
Yes, and first of all, the walks between various Byzantine and ancient stuff, because Sparta is also the Dorian Sparta, the Christian Sparta, and the pre-Dorian, the Helen of Troy and Menelaus and all the peoples that were before the Dorians descended on the land and made the classical Spartan culture, which was Dorian. So yes, and you'll also have a little thing and headset, and you will listen to your right and so, and not just for historical stuff, but for the modern, as you walk around, something will explain to you as to what's going on. Yes, yes. We're actually having a competition now between alternative offers that we have to do that for us. But we'd like to proceed with this revamping and the open mall of the city square and the surrounding commercial area around the city square. And then we can get on and the new avenue of Constantine Palaiologos, and it will be much easier for us to work on the rest of the stuff. But it's a time-consuming, again, it's a very time-consuming process.
And I've been fortunate enough to be in the storerooms of the Archaeological Museum and to know, and I'm sure you have as well, to know what people never see. And I'm thinking about the need to build a new museum, how it's going to showcase the history of Sparta. And I wonder if you can preview, just for people on this Zoom call, what the new museum will house and what the old museum will be used for.
Yes, first of all, the new museum will be as you pass the Evrotas Bridge on your right. It used to be a Fix beer factory, FIX, Fix, the old beer brand. And somehow the Archaeology Commission said that this was something that is an industrial masterpiece and we have to keep it. And the new museum has to be surrounding this edifice. I was not in agreement with that, but anyhow, I don't think it was that spectacular. But anyhow, so the new designers had to design the museum, keeping these old facades of this derelict building. So when it is ready, it will take again some time. The prefecture in Tripoli is responsible and financing that program. There may be some Greek American benefactor as well. I'm not sure unless it's not there until it's there. So all of it will be transferred to the new site, and we see what happens to the old site. It's a beautiful building, so there could be a number of uses. So it's going to be at the entry of Sparta. We're now trying to build a 35 feet helmet, Spartan helmet. So when you come into the city, you will see a huge helmet that should be impressive for many miles around, and try to beautify the city of that from that point of view. And also we're going to be issuing very shortly a series of stamps with the Hellenic, the official Hellenic post office. We're going to be issuing a series of stamps. One of it is going to be Helen of Troy in the Renaissance. Various famous painters of the Renaissance have painted her. So we have one of that. Some others are going to be from Mistras and Constantine Palaiologos. This is the second. A third is going to be on ancient Sparta and Leonidas. And a fourth on Leonidas in popular art, like Gerald Butler, whom we had on March 13th. And it was very strange because it was right at the time when all the idea of closing the borders was surfacing. And apparently they told them, you have to leave today for Greece and you cannot go to Sparta to participate in the Olympic torch run, where 50 million people from Tokyo were watching, because it was the main pre-Olympic event, the torch from Olympia to Sparta and then to Athens and to Tokyo. And he said, no, I promised Peter I will go to Sparta, and I'm going to Sparta no matter what. And he came here, Gerald Butler, with a number of Hollywood producers, Gianni Nunari, Siegel, and what have you, which has London Down and Washington Down, these films. So there was a whole group from Hollywood, and there was a great event, and he made a really great speech in favor of Sparta that we haven't been able to enjoy because we're tsunamied by these corona events. So we take it from there.
I think related to that, there were a few questions about Mistra and the approach to Mistra and the village of Mistra with garbage cans that are public, etc. So are there plans to beautify the approach to the archaeological site, to make a special entranceway to that site that would draw more people to Mistra?
I cannot say that we have a plan yet for that. So the road typically is not crowded, so it's not that you have some sort of congestion, but the whole place needs to be redone. And we will look into that. But I cannot tell you yet, there's like that we have for the main avenues, that there is a plan yet in place. There's a number of things, waterworks we need to fix in Mistras. There's a whole host of things we're going to do. And then we're going to look at a major entry after the King Emperor Palaiologos statue, which is very, very touching. So yes, we'll work on it, but I cannot tell you I have something in place already.
So Mayor, yesterday when we were talking, you were drinking this delicious orange juice, and you mentioned briefly about agribusiness. I would love to be able to get oranges here in Los Angeles from Sparta. Are there any incentives to boost exports or agribusiness, public incentives, or how do you attract businesses?
It's demand and supply. If there is demand for that kind of product, there's plenty of production you can deliver, even though with COVID, the price of oranges of Sparta has really skyrocketed, which has been good for the producers because people think vitamin C is good for their anti-COVID efforts. So even though a year and a half ago, it was a weak price, all of a sudden it jumped, and our farmers are very, very orange growers are very, very happy. But if there is somebody there who's willing, because you cannot have a carton for yourself, you need somebody to import bigger amounts. which are much more delicious than Brazilian oranges. I'm sure we can fix that, but it has to be some sort of commercial venture that places an order and has demand from local supermarkets. But the product itself is beautiful.
Right.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Question that's coming up related to orange juice maybe is, how are the people in the area being encouraged to take the COVID vaccine, thinking about health issues? There are many people in villages, for example, who are scared of the vaccines. Is there a plan to persuade people or to lead them gently into taking the vaccine?
We're calling them. First of all, we have to have enough supply of vaccines. So we don't get immediately, 40,000 vaccines to vaccinate everybody. I'll try to be one of the first one to take it, but I don't want people to think, oh, because he's the mayor, he's bypassing me, then taking it first. So I'll wait for some to take it, but then I'll declare publicly, yes, I'm very willing and able to take it. But, I don't want to be the first in line, so people think that I use my mayorship to get first in line. So no, people realize that they have to get the vaccine. Some people say, okay, but where I go for the vaccination, maybe that's where I get infected. So you have these problems of the areas where they're going to get vaccinated, and they start asking questions. But no, typically by the time we have enough vaccines, everybody will be vaccinated. So it's not a major issue. Always in you hear people saying, oh, this is fraud. There's really not a COVID pandemic, but now more and more people are convinced it is a real problem because they hear of cases of people they know, so they know it's a problem. But it's not a problem in getting them to vaccinate.
Maybe we need to think about a campaign of Leonidas taking a vaccine to inspire people in Laconia.
They will accuse me of using history to our benefit and blah, blah. I will not hear the end of it if we do that. So
one interesting question from Dean Pops is, Sparta is known for war, of course. What are the possibilities of renewing Greek defense industries, such as small arms manufacturing? He would love to own a shotgun or a handgun or a rifle made in Sparta.
We would like to use the Spartan brand to get companies like Honeywell or General Dynamics to name it or produce it. Now, the Prime Minister of Greece has stated that revitalizing the Greek defense industry is in his priorities because we have had this constant problem with Turkey. They always try to make an inroad with their navy and what have you. They haven't been a very peaceful neighbor. So now we're ordering 18 French Rafales, where state-of-the-art aircraft, some new, some used by the French Air Force. And he said very clearly that he's going to take care of the Greek private and public defense industry. So Dean, let's get some ideas. But as a city, would love to have a company use our brand name. The new tank is the Spartan tank, the Abrams tank or something. They call the Spartan tanks, and get some benefit out of that. And of course, create some jobs for our guys here. So it's a good idea.
I think since you just brought up the term public-private partnership, one question that's come up, and I'm sure all of us are thinking about in hearing about the very ambitious plans for the city, is how are you going to pay for them?
Well, first of all, the big private-public partnership has to do with garbage collection. Okay, that's a big one. And that is done by the prefecture in Tripoli, the head of the prefecture, Panagiotis Nikas. And apparently in 5 months from now, it's going to be operating a major factory to recycle and process garbage. Now, for the other things, which are road building and municipal roads and agricultural roads, the money is funded by the central state and various European support programs, like the Anthony Trichis support program, which has a number of things for waterworks. So our main source of revenues is that. We'd love to have private venturers, but the types of projects that we're doing are not that, minus, of course, the garbage collection thing. But it's something that we're keeping our eyes open just in case some good idea passes by. But so far, the public works, like, for example, the main avenue that I said we're going to revamp, it cannot, you cannot do it as a private-public partnership, because then you have to put a toll in the middle of the main, like putting a toll on Fifth Avenue. It's going to be very, very difficult for the private partner to get paid.
And one thing that we didn't mention much is about the airport. Are there plans for expansion or international flights coming directly? Or and what are some challenges, I guess, because airports need a lot of space.
The airport was abandoned about 20 years ago, and it has, as I said, a corridor, asphalt corridor of 1,250 meters. The guys, the inspectors from the Greek civil aviation that came, we invited them and they came, found that the corridor itself is in good shape. As I said, 1,250 meters is like the fifth, sixth smallest airport in Greece. There are another 5 or 6 that are smaller in some islands than what have you, that there's not enough space. So it's a workable airport. We would like to be able to expand it. But first, before we put money on the table, I'd like to see this smaller venture be operational. So we're waiting next week or the week after for the Greek Civil Aviation Administration to send us the report as what we as the city of Sparta need to do to make it operational. And we'll invite their inspectors and tell them, this is our plan, this is what we're doing. If we do that, are you sure you're going to give us the license to operate? And once they say yes, we will operate. Now, this could be, Sharon, an interesting private-public partnership. So we have already, by press leaks, not an official invitation because the airport is not operational, but via press leaks and discussions like this, said that we're more than willing to get a private partner to come, invest in it, refix the buildings, and then operate it. What I want is, I don't want, as a city of Sparta, to make money. I want the airport to be operational, to revitalize economic life in the city and create jobs. We don't have to make money out of it. We could lose some money as long as we create jobs and revitalize the city. I see flights coming in and out and spending money on that airport area. So yes, we're very, very confident. It was an abandoned project. We're trying to revitalize it and push it as hard as we can. The airport belongs to the Ministry of Defense, and the Minister of Defense has given it to the city of Sparta, not sold it, given it for some sort of token rent to fix and build it. So now we're working with the Civil Aviation Administration to get all the licenses and do the right thing to operate it. We don't want to operate it as a city because we're not experts in airports. We don't, not every idea that we have, and we come up with ideas like a popcorn machine, we can operate. We will ask private venturers or another Greek airport to send us its managers and manage it, as long as the airport operates. And if it operates well, then we will extend the corridor. But first I need to see that it operates and is not a losing proposition. Then we can actually give it to a private venture and take it from there.
And just to follow up with the airport, I mean, are you concerned about environmental and noise issues for the city or for the neighboring villages?
Not really. There may be some sort of issue, but you cannot have progress, you cannot have jobs if you want to live in a society that was, as it was, 200 years ago. I mean, the city needs to grow, some of which will have some environmental effects, but there's no free meal. We need to have such an airport. We'll try to be as environmentally strict as possible. It's going to be for smaller planes, firefighting planes or crop dusters, planes up to 40 seats. So we're not going to have Boeing 747s and Airbus A380s or something. It's going to be smaller aircraft that will serve the purposes that Kalamata Airport, which is an hour and something away, an hour and 25 minutes away, cannot serve, which is already congested, the Kalamata Airport. So there is for us a role to play.
We have a question from Kiki. My wife, being Spartan, we received from her family's olive grove delicious olives, unlike the Greek olives we find in the US market. I can say that's true. My question to you is, what can be done to encourage the distribution of high quality olives to the rest of the world from this region?
Yeah. What I said is good question. We're trying to get this network of growers so they can work together, because, you know, we're a very individualistic species. Everybody wants to have his own brand of wine, his own brand of olives and what have you, and have this network that will actually try to do more and better branding and more and better marketing and greater participation in world fairs and in whatever now, because we cannot have world fairs and exhibitions, whichever way now is the most promising and most useful, to be able to have the money and have the resources to actually participate and sell, because the product itself is good. We need to improve on branding and marketing. That they realize themselves. We, because we have some expertise, will try to help them there.
Sharon,
Help them spread their wings.
Push a little bit on this, Mayor, because I have read someplace about Greek olive oil, not particularly from Sparta, that it's probably the best product in the world, but because we're like Greek industries are lacking in technology, some of them, we're losing the battle against Spain and Italy in terms of the quantities of olive oil they can process, they can produce. So I guess the article I was reading was making the point, and I'm not sure how true it is, that it is not so much a question of the product, which is excellent, or even branding, but more the lack of technology. Is that true?
It's more of a branding issue. The technology they do have, there are modern factories, they're smaller in size. The Italian factories may be 20 times the size of a local factory plus, but still, we need to do more on the branding. Technology is a matter of private enterprise, what the guy is willing to invest. And we cannot really force them to unite forces because they have this individualistic idea, but we can help them do their stuff, but have a more common approach to international marketing and to improving the value of the brand name. Like Gerald Butler said, you know, this is Sparta kind of thing. This type of idea we're trying to help, and they realize that, and they're asking us now for our support in that. And we're going to try to do it on talking the next weeks or so.
Mayor, we have a question from Mr. Jim Birakos from LA and Yithion.
thank you, Sharon. Excellent presentation, Mayor. Wonderful background information on Sparta. I love Sparta. I'm there at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. I love Sparta. It's a wide boulevard. It's neoclassical buildings. The oranges that Nikiforos Vretakos writes about, they're wonderful stuff. Your plan to expand Sparta, to make it more, to bring it up to date, to modernize it, more jobs, more operations, factories. What about the environment? That's my concern. The valley of the Evrotas is well known. It's warm in the summer. It's cold in the winter. There are fireplace particulates that get into the air and suspended over the atmosphere of Sparta. In the summertime, you've got an inversion layer, you've got pollution from vehicles and others. How do you plan to care for that, to be able to solve the air quality issues?
Yeah. So far, we don't have an air quality. And if you noticed, most of our plants were not heavy industry type of plants. We didn't say to General Motors, come and build a auto factory here, because we know it's going to be very, very detrimental. Now, what we're doing is supporting agriculture that exists, more through software kind of branding kind of improvements. We want to make the city more beautiful, have more trees in it. We want to paint the Evrotas Bridge and make it much more beautiful. So all the things we have discussed, for example, you saw what I mentioned before. I said we want to make Sparta an international sports center city without having major stadiums. You know, people, if you run from here to Thermopylae or from the top to the top of Mount Aetos, you don't need a super stadium. And this is what to do, have the beginning of the sports in the central square, which is open air, non-polluting. Similarly with the airport, we said it's going to be a modest kind of venture. We're not going to try to replace LAX airport or JFK airport or Heathrow. It's going to be good for our local demands and local ideas. Evrotas, we're trying to clean now because, you know, especially some olive growers, and when they actually process the olives, they throw some of the remnants into the river and what have you. So we're trying to clean that as well, because it's a beautiful river to which I'm going swimming every now and then. Now with the COVID, I thought of going swimming actually today. But I said, if I get a mini cold or something, people will think I have corona and I have to stay home and disappear for 2 weeks. So okay, play it safe, because you cannot afford to develop any sort of temperature with these things, because temperature means almost COVID, and you got to stay locked out. And I cannot afford that at this point. So yes, because I said our villages are beautiful, both in Mount Parnon and Mount Aegetos, and have been left pristine. We want to keep that. We don't want to have other works. And you know, so far the city is workable. You can survive. Even the road to Githion, which we need to get a better road, it's going to have an impact on the environment. You're going to have a lot of acres to the right and to the left where wild animals exist and what have you, that are going to be dislocated. So even that small thing, which is just a widening and improvement of the road, does have repercussions. But we have to balance how much progress we want versus how much of the environment we want to affect. We have to affect some, but in my tenure, I want it to be minimal.
The Spartan brand extends to the Spartan taxis, which are painted a maroon color to recall the cloaks of the ancient Spartans that used the red cloak to hide the blood for the enemy. So that's a wonderful brand approach.
They want to change it into all white.
Oh,
we had a whole fight in our little parliament about changing the color because the new entrance one. And I said, but it's people are used to something. You have to have this sort of grandfather clauses where if somebody is used to that, no need to change everything all the time just because the improvement is minimal. If there is a substantial improvement, fine, but no need to destroy a cultural thing just for the sake of small economic improvement. But they were adamant. We had a big fight with them about changing the colors.
Thank you. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Great to hear you, Jake.
Mayor, we continue to have many questions on different topics. Here's the question regarding the Syrian refugees that you and I've discussed. Sparta's received an influx of refugees. We know they're staying in a hotel. What is the plan for the refugees, including the COVID plan, and they're also moving on beyond Sparta?
The government decided to send us refugees about 300. At some point, they became 305. Now they're down to 250, of which 130, around roughly, are kids under 15, and 120 are adults. Their papers are pretty much ready for all of them to leave town now, and they want to leave. They don't want to be stuck in a hotel with the virus roaming around. It's not their dream of a life to be in a hotel stuck 5 people in one room. So they want to leave, and we would like them to leave, even though they have not caused any problem, and Spartans have not caused them any problem, despite the original frictions that you have when new people enter into town in such a massive amount. 250 may not be super massive, but it's massive enough. Now, what we're doing with them is putting them through the test of COVID. And the authorities of Athens have said that they need to be clean of COVID to get them all out of Sparta and into Athens so they can get the paper and go wherever it is they were going to go, but certainly outside Sparta. So now, originally, there were about 20-something of them that were testing positive. The new tests are coming out much more encouragingly negative. But the authorities in Athens say that there need to be a few more days for them to be negative, to be sure it's clean. Of course, we say that, you know, the more you stay there, you're bound to, at some point, to catch the disease, to catch the virus. You know, the more you stay there, you cannot always ensure that nobody's going to have it. And of course, have the vaccination. And the process is already set for them to go to Athens, take their papers, and go wherever it is to go. So they don't want to stay here more than we would not want them to stay here, even though we try to treat them as humanly as possible. You know, the destitute situation, they're there, their kids. Who wants to be in a hotel room without proper education, without a proper soccer field to go play, without enjoyment with your own friends, without freedom to move about? It's a really bad situation, and we're not trying to make it worse. But certainly we're pushing for papers to be finished the soonest possible, so they can be happier and we can be happier. So this is the situation now. We need to have a few more tests that the place is clean. We have changed again, this is not a municipal authority kind of thing, is we're pushing the authorities to do that, to change the room so you have one floor of COVID-free immigrants and one floor of people that have COVID and what have you. But it's the medical authorities that are managing that, not the municipal authorities. We're trying to support and facilitate things. And so far, I think we've done a decent job in making sure that as soon as the rest of the COVID results are good, they will go to Athens by buses that the International Migration Organization will provide itself.
We have a question from Laconiko Tipo, which asks about your biggest dream as a mayor for Sparta and which is going to be your legacy. What do you think would be your legacy and your biggest dream?
Okay, I don't think myself in biggest dreams. I think of myself in 200 smaller dreams, but it's beautifying the main city with the main avenue and the main street, and making sure that what I said before, that the public administration and the municipal administration has to work properly. The people that work for the city and get paid by the taxpayers should try to always improve themselves, as we always yourselves try to improve yourselves, and I try to improve myself. So it's a lot of little dreams, but getting the city more beautiful in its center and the main avenue and the entrance is a legacy that I think is worth fighting. And also getting the city to become a center of international interest. What I said before, major peace conferences between East and West to happen in Sparta, because we have sold that legacy. You know, the Persian Wars started here, and the biggest battle was fought here in Thermopylae, but by a Spartan and a Thespian army. So once people start appreciating that, Sparta will take its place in modern history, and then some of these projects that we're doing will be greatly facilitated.
And there is a very specific question, Mayor, about the site in Pellana, the ancient capital of Laconia, home of King Menelaus, Helen of Troy. Why is it closed to the public? And are there any plans for this archaeological site and its discoveries?
It's a very major archaeological site. Now, whether that was indeed the palace of Menelaus or was it closer to Mamikles or what have you, it's for the archaeologists to decide. The problem is that there was not enough funding to continue it. And the because this doesn't belong to the municipality, it belongs to the Ministry of Culture. So there was not enough funding to complete it. So they have to actually lock it up so people don't go and steal things from it. So this was the issue. Until the funding is reopened and they find enough money to keep it from A to Z, not from A to B and then close it again and go from B to C and what have you. The situation is that it's an unfortunate situation. We're trying to see how the city of Sparta can help, but it's not up to our signatures and our financial support to do anything. But the problem is that is a lack of funding for something that's really, really beautiful. So we'd like to help and would like to see it completed as fast as possible, because it is quite impressive, as well as the Agios Vasilios foundings, very, very near the village of Xirokambi. Sharon, you know about it. So that we're trying to impress, because there were very, very original ancient findings. It's quite impressive. And we want to build a whole story, because, okay, you see something and say, okay, what is the big meaning of it? What I discussed before about the meaning of Sparta is where the political civilization of the modern world started. That's the basic meaning. The first time you have a dual kingship, the first time you have a senate, the first time somebody says the constitution is a democracy. It's a republican democracy. Many people confuse what the republican means and what democratic means. If you look at our passports, they don't say Greek democracy, Hellenic Demokratia, they say Hellenic Republic. So there's a difference between Republican and Democratic in terms of political systems. Republican means that all social classes are represented and you protect farmers' property. You cannot overtax them, you cannot expropriate their land. So that's the difference. It's a democracy, but it has a more conservative system of filters, whereas democracy means we decide and we vote, and what we vote is the new law. A Republican system has more filters between the will of the people and becoming the law can take place. So anyhow, to come back, Anastasia, to your question, it was a matter of funding, and the faster we can get some funding for it to complete the whole process, the situation is going to remain, unfortunately, as you described before.
I wanted to ask just there are many Greek Americans watching you today who have deep roots in the region. If they want to help out financially or to volunteer to help you fulfill these plans, how can they get in touch with you or with somebody in your office to coordinate efforts?
The best thing is, first of all, directly with me. Email Petros Doukas, my name, Petros Doukas, Doukas, one word, at, again, the same name, petrosdoukas.gr. Send me the ideas and we'll be very, very willing to tell you how you can help them. What I'm trying to do now is raise the money. It's about 170,000 euros to build this huge helmet in the entrance of Sparta. It's going to be a very huge helmet by one of the top Greek sculptors. And I wanted to impress me. When somebody approaches Sparta, I want him to say, oh, I'm not just entering any village with great history. I see something that starts inspiring me and I get the shingles or something like that. So Petros Doukas, one word, at petrosdoukas.gr. You can reach me and I do read my emails and I'll respond to you. And if we can get some funding for that statue, it would be great because it's going to change the outlook of Sparta very fast. It's going to be one of the easiest things to do that can impress a visitor.
The number of the questions I see that we did not answer also require funding, such as, are there plans to revitalize the Ioannis Theodorakopoulos School of Philosophy in Mistras, or your idea for a peace conference between Persia, Islamic Republic of Iran, and the West? Have there been any plans there? So I assume that all these they're great ideas, but they do require funding.
Yes. Regarding, for example, the conference, East-West, we are ready, and I think some sides are ready, but I have to make sure with the new US administration, Joe Biden, whether they would like to do something like that. Because some of the things you don't want to meddle where two elephants are fighting. You're going to get squeezed. So we want to do it if they think we're facilitating. Similarly with NATO, we want to have the NATO conference as soon as possible, but now we can't even plan. We don't know what's happening with the Brazilian strain, the South African strain of coronavirus. We'll hope that by June, with the summer months, things will clear, but we want to make sure there's going to be not a fourth wave of coronavirus, and you go to the whole expense of arranging things, and then nothing happens. So there was a second part to your question. One was about the East-West Iran conference, which we're ready to host, and we have plans how to do it, but we need the permission from the interested parties to do it. We don't want to make more enemies.
Yes, there is a question if there are plans to revitalize the Ioannis Theodorakopoulos School of...
Yes, right. The answer is no, because it's a private property and it was a fully private venture. If the Theodorakopoulos family, Stratigis and his daughter and what have you, are interested, we would very much like to do it. So far, we're trying to support the Center of Byzantine Studies in Mistra, which is something similar. But Theodorakopoulos has a legacy. He's done a great job. So if the family has a plan, and because it's, as I said, a private property, it's their own personal property, has a plan to actually do something with it, would be very, very eager to help because it has a legacy and we want to exploit it and take advantage of it. But it's not something we can just do unilaterally on our own.
I think related toward looking for the future, is there an art or cultural committee to organize or direct funding for large-scale art projects in Sparta? How do people get involved in that?
First of all, we would love to have ideas on that. We have the cultural committee, a cultural organization of the municipality of Sparta. We were actually planning to host by the sides of River Evrotas a sculpture course where we would have top 10 Greek artists and sculptors who would come, and we'll give them huge stones that would make some sort of major mini monuments, and which would be left in the city of Sparta. And then we'd like to have two benefactors who want to give us their collections, very, very interesting collections. And we're now trying to find an appropriate place to actually deposit them. We need a space that's well guarded and well taken care of and well air conditioned. And this is what we're trying to find now before we actually lose the donations themselves. And then the cultural events would be in the central square. And of course, we have the Koumandaros, famous Greek-American Koumandaros family from New York and here from Sparta that have the painting exhibitions. So yes, we're very, very open to some ideas of that sort.
And I assume that involves also the neolea. I mean, the younger artists would also, and students of art from universities and outside of Greece would also be invited?
Absolutely. And as I said, we'd like to use the banks of the River Evrotas as an area where they can actually do their workshops. And if any young artists want to have workshops here, mostly on their initiative, we'll try to find them a place to live and a place to work. So yes, we would love to have young artists here. Like 7th century before Christ, Sparta, it was really a major cultural center with poets and artists. So we'd like to revive that, and I'm open to suggestions. And again, we'll offer them hospitality if they want to come here.
Yes, like it was the vibrant art scene in the 14th century as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes.
I promised you we would get into the nitty-gritty a little bit, and there have been questions about public transportation. And one question, are the local bus routes within Laconia printed and published online for the benefit of residents and tourists?
Yes, the KTEL. Now, I need to check whether they have it in English. Mm-hmm. But the Greek bus schedules are well defined. Of course, there has been a major reduction. We're talking about the 80% reduction in, for example, in the Athens to Sparta bus line, because people have to be much more sparse, and there were all these limitations to travel. Mm-hmm. So the bus company has suffered, the private bus company has suffered quite a bit, and that's why we want to work with them on the municipal side. The Sparta to Githio and the other routes are defined by them, and so far apparently are well serviced. And where they're not well serviced is because they don't make economic sense. People are losing money by operating. You have one passenger every now and then. But we are very, very open. Again, as I said, we're an open government. We're very open to suggestions. Someone has a good idea. And also to sponsorship. If somebody wants to sponsor something and put his name and legacy under it, we're very, very pleased. We wanted to start with a helmet, and there's a smaller helmet by one of the local artists made out of used metals in the city. And it's cheaper, but it's not the kind of thing that I want for the entrance, but that also could be for one of our major squares. So sponsorships and ideas are more than welcome.
And there is a question about earthquakes. If the new buildings are built to resist major earthquake, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. They are not local standards. They are Greek-wide, pan-Hellenic standards, and they're very, very strict. And everything that is built now is built to the old standards. You have a lot of buildings that are built with the older standards. So some of them where you may suffer from a major earthquake, but you cannot build wreck them beforehand just in case. They're old stone, strong stone buildings, but the heavy earthquake will damage no matter where it happens. It cannot be completely immune. But the new buildings are up to very, very strict standards, all of them.
I'm keeping my eye on the clock, and I'm realizing that it's time for you to transition from orange juice to ouzo or wine, and for us to transition from orange juice to Pepsi. I'll say that in your honor. So I just want to ask if there are any final questions or comments. I
There is
will.
one last question, Sharon, that I see that I don't, it just came in. If there are opening hours for Laconian museums, archaeological sites, and local events announced online, or any Google or other electronic calendar. I think that's the
They
last
are
question.
announced online. There have been a lot of changes in the timing because of COVID, and things are locked up pretty much right now. So there's no timing at this point because we are in the strict lockdown. But as soon as things normalize, you will get international language versions of exactly when you can visit Mistras and the ancient historical museum of Sparta and what have you. So there will be that as part of our whole tourist project. At this time, you cannot virtually visit anything.
Let's hope that every one of us will be able to do that in the near future and probably
Yes.
summer.
I hope so too. I want to thank you on behalf of our center. It was our honor to have such a charismatic and knowledgeable mayor to start off our series. Our next mayor will be Moses Elisaf from Ioannina, who we will welcome on January 27th at the same time. I'm not sure we're going to put him through the same rigorous pace that we've done with a Spartan mayor, but we'll try. I wonder if I could invite Mr. Pavlakos to come back. Maybe you want to say something on behalf of the Pan-Laconians. Truly, thank you so much for giving us so much to think about. And I hope, as Anastasia said, that we'll all be able to sit in the platia at the Luskin and have a great coffee or orange juice together in the near future.
Yeah. Yes, I want to thank also the mayor for the excellent presentation. And also you, Sharon and Anastasia, and the center. And I'm on behalf of the Pan-Laconian Federation, I want to thank you for the invitation, the kind invitation. And I think it was a very, very good experience with this virtual event. And hopefully there will be more to follow. And I want to thank all the participants and for their excellent questions. It was very good that they got involved. And thank you very much.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Sharon. It was really, really a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was laconic and informative. We want people to participate. We want them to feel next to us. And if they have a good idea, we will try to implement. And if they want to help us implement it, so much the better. We can save our resources. It's a great city, a great history that's offered so much to the world. And there is so much we can do, including if they want to help us organize some of these international events, either sports events or geopolitical events or NATO or what have you. We are very open. Or if they want to introduce us to schools who want to have summer camps here, or want to have series of lectures from Sparta, really, really open to new ideas.
Let's remember that in the period I studied, Laconia, Mistra was the most important city next to Thessaloniki in Greece. So let's hope that Sparta will again become, take over that position. I'm here behind you. I hope our center can help you as much as possible. And please also send us your comments. I'm happy as well to convey them to the mayor. And it's been a wonderful experience to spend the morning and your evening hearing about everything you're doing. And we all wish you great good fortune and good health. And Kali Sinechia, Καλό βράδυ σε όλους. I hope that we'll see you all back here to reconvene to meet with Mayor Elisaf and continue. I invite you, Mayor Doukas, to come to that as well.
Excellent. Glad to.
Yeah.
Μιλάς και καλά ελληνικά, βλέπω, Sharon. Μπράβο.
I want to thank you also, and also many thanks to Sharon, because she is an amazing force at UCLA, makes wonderful things to let us all know about the importance of Greece and its cities and its civilization. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sharon. And thank you, everybody who attended.
Have a great evening and make sure you drink
Thank
some
you.
Laconian orange juice, everyone, today.
And have a great new year.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.